Rita Collins stared at the ceiling of her bedroom, watching the morning light create patterns through the half-broken blinds. It was 10:30 in the morning and she was still in bed. Not because she wanted to be there, but because getting up required energy she simply didn't have anymore. The alarm on her phone had gone off 3 hours ago, but she'd just turned it off and pulled the blanket over her head. This had become her routine over the past 4 months, ever since the day her boss called her into his office and told her the company was downsizing. Budget cuts, he'd said. Nothing personal. Just business. She'd cleaned out her desk that same afternoon, carrying a small cardboard box to her car while her former coworkers avoided eye contact. That walk to the parking lot felt like the longest walk of her life. Rita was 42 years old, divorced for 3 years, and mother to 2 teenagers. Megan was 16 and constantly needed money for school activities. Danny was 14 and growing so fast that his jeans never seemed to fit right for more than a month. They lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the west side of town, the kind of place where the rent was just affordable enough, but the water heater made strange noises in the middle of the night. Before losing her job, Rita had worked as a graphic designer for a mid-sized advertising firm. She'd spent 12 years there, creating logos, designing websites, working on campaigns. It wasn't her dream job, but it paid the bills and gave her a sense of purpose. She was good at it too. Clients would specifically request her for their projects, but none of that mattered when the company needed to trim expenses. The savings account she'd carefully built up was shrinking faster than she'd imagined possible. Rent, groceries, utilities, car insurance, phone bills. The numbers kept adding up while nothing was coming in. She'd sent out dozens of resumes, filled out countless applications, but the responses were always the same, either silence or a polite rejection email thanking her for her interest. The worst part wasn't the money, though. It was the emptiness. Rita would drop the kids off at school, come home, and then the day would just stretch out in front of her like a desert. She'd sit at her laptop, searching job boards until her eyes hurt. She'd update her portfolio. She'd rehearse interview answers in the mirror. But as the weeks turned into months, something inside her started to dim. Her friends stopped calling as much. Or maybe she'd stopped answering. It was hard to remember. When people asked how she was doing, she'd force a smile and say she was fine, just taking some time to find the right opportunity. But inside she felt like she was drowning. The apartment walls seemed to move closer every day. Some mornings she'd realize she hadn't spoken to another adult in 3 days. Megan and Danny knew something was wrong even though Rita tried to hide it. She'd catch them whispering to each other, giving her worried looks. They'd started asking for less, turning down invitations to go out with friends, pretending they didn't need new shoes or school supplies. That hurt more than anything. Her kids were trying to protect her, and she was supposed to be the one protecting them. On this particular Tuesday morning, Rita finally dragged herself out of bed around 11. She shuffled to the kitchen in her bathrobe, the same one she'd been wearing for 2 days straight. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The sink was full of dishes from last night's dinner. The living room had newspapers scattered across the coffee table, job listings circled in red ink that led nowhere. She made instant coffee because she'd run out of the good stuff last week and couldn't justify buying more. The microwave hummed as it heated the water. While she waited, she picked up her phone and started scrolling through social media without really seeing anything. Just letting the screen glow in front of her face, a habit to fill the emptiness. That's when she saw the post. It was from the Valley Community Center, a place she'd driven past 100 times but never really noticed. They were looking for volunteers to help prepare Thanksgiving meals for homeless families. The holiday was 3 weeks away and they needed people to help sort donations, pack food boxes, and set up the dining hall. Rita read the post twice. Her first thought was that she couldn't possibly help anyone else when she could barely help herself. Her second thought was that at least it would get her out of the apartment. Her third thought, the one that surprised her, was that maybe doing something for someone else would make her feel a little less useless. She stared at the post for a long time, her thumb hovering over the comment box. A part of her brain kept saying this was ridiculous. She didn't have time for this. She needed to focus on finding a job. She needed to save every bit of energy for her own family. Who volunteers when they're barely keeping their own head above water? But another voice, quieter and deeper, whispered something different. It reminded her of the person she used to be. Before the divorce. Before the job loss. before the depression settled over her like a heavy fog. She used to be someone who helped at the school bake sales, someone who organized birthday parties, someone who smiled easily and meant it. Rita's hands were shaking slightly as she typed out a response. She kept it simple, said she was available to help and asked what they needed. Before she could talk herself out of it, she hit send. Then she set the phone down on the counter and took a deep breath. The microwave beeped. She took out her coffee and sat at the small kitchen table, the one that wobbled unless you put a folded napkin under one leg. Outside her window, she could see the parking lot and the street beyond. Normal people doing normal things, going to work, running errands, living their lives. For the first time in weeks, Rita felt something other than numbness. It wasn't hope exactly. It was more like a tiny crack in the wall she'd built around herself. A small possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was something out there beyond this apartment and her own thoughts spinning in circles. Her phone buzzed. A response from the community center. They'd sent her the address, the schedule, and a message saying they were grateful for her help. They asked if she could come by on Friday afternoon for orientation. Rita looked at her calendar, which was completely empty, and typed back that Friday would be perfect. She finished her coffee, then actually washed the cup and put it in the dish rack. It was a small thing, but it felt significant somehow, like she was making a tiny promise to herself. She took a shower, got dressed in actual clothes instead of staying in her bathrobe, and even put on a bit of makeup. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone who looked tired and worried, but at least present, at least trying. The rest of the day passed differently than the ones before it. Rita still sent out job applications, but she didn't sink into the usual despair when she finished. She had something on her calendar now, something to look forward to even if it was just volunteering. When the kids came home from school, she asked them about their day and actually listened to their answers. She made dinner and they ate together at the table instead of everyone retreating to their rooms. That night, lying in bed, Rita thought about Friday. She wondered what it would be like at the community center, who she'd meet, what she'd be doing. A nervous flutter moved through her stomach, the kind she hadn't felt in months. It wasn't quite excitement, but it was something close to it, something alive. She had no way of knowing that her decision to volunteer, made on an ordinary Tuesday morning while drinking instant coffee in a bathrobe, would change everything. She couldn't have imagined that walking through the doors of that community center would lead her somewhere she never expected. Sometimes the smallest choices lead to the biggest miracles, and Rita Collins was about to discover that when you reach out to help others, even when you're broken yourself, the universe has a way of reaching back. Friday afternoon arrived with unexpected sunshine. Rita found herself standing in the parking lot of the Valley Community Center, gripping her car keys a little too tightly. The building was larger than it looked from the street, a converted warehouse with big windows and a hand-painted sign that said, "Everyone welcome here," in bright colors. She almost turned around 3 times. Once in her car before she left home, once when she pulled into the parking lot, and once standing right there 10 feet from the entrance. Her brain kept offering helpful suggestions like, "You're wasting their time," and "What if everyone else is younger and more energetic?" and "You should be job hunting instead." But she'd promised. And Rita had always been someone who kept her promises even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. So she took a breath, pushed open the door, and stepped inside. The main room was huge and bustling with activity. People were everywhere, sorting through boxes of canned goods, folding tables, hanging decorations. The smell of coffee filled the air, mixing with the sound of laughter and conversation. It felt warm and alive in a way that made Rita realize just how cold and dead her apartment had felt. A young woman with a clipboard spotted her immediately. "Hi there. Are you here for the volunteer orientation?" Rita nodded. "Yes, I'm Rita Collins. I signed up earlier this week." The woman's face brightened. "Oh, wonderful. I'm Beth. We're so glad you're here. Let me show you where we're meeting." She led Rita down a hallway to a smaller room where about a dozen other volunteers were gathered. They ranged in age from teenagers to retirees, all looking slightly nervous and eager in equal measure. The orientation was simple. Beth explained how the Thanksgiving program worked. They'd be serving about 200 families this year, providing complete holiday meals and a warm place to gather. Volunteers were needed for everything from sorting donations to serving food to cleaning up. Everyone could choose what they felt comfortable doing. After the orientation, Beth started assigning people to different areas. Rita, how would you feel about working in our storage room? We've got a ton of donations that need to be organized and inventoried. It's quieter back there if you prefer working without too much chaos. Rita felt relieved. Quiet sounded perfect. She wasn't sure she was ready for lots of small talk and forced cheerfulness. That sounds good. Beth led her through the main hall and down another corridor to a large storage room. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with boxes and bags. In the center of the room, a small gray-haired woman sat at a folding table, writing on a notepad. She looked up as they entered. Helen, this is Rita. She's going to help you with organizing the donations. Beth turned to Rita. Helen basically runs this whole operation. She knows where everything is and how everything works. You're in good hands. Helen stood up and Rita noticed she was tiny, maybe 5 feet tall, with silver hair pulled back in a practical bun, but her eyes were bright and warm, the kind of eyes that seemed to see right through pretenses. She looked to be in her late 70s but moved with surprising energy. Well, hello, dear, Helen said, her voice carrying a slight accent Rita couldn't quite place. Don't let Beth exaggerate. I just like to keep things organized. My husband used to say I could alphabetize a tornado. She smiled at the memory, though something sad flickered across her face. Beth left them to it, and for a moment Rita and Helen just stood there sizing each other up. Rita suddenly felt awkward. So, where should I start? Helen gestured to a pile of boxes near the door. Those just came in this morning. Mostly canned goods and dry pasta. We need to check what's inside, make sure nothing's expired, then sort them onto those shelves over there. Vegetables on one shelf, fruits on another, pasta and grains together. Pretty straightforward. They settled into a comfortable rhythm. Helen would open a box, call out what was inside, and Rita would carry the items to the appropriate shelves. For the first 20 minutes, they worked mostly in silence, with just the occasional 12 cans of green beans or 6 boxes of macaroni breaking the quiet. But gradually, they started talking. It began with small things. Helen mentioned she'd been volunteering at the center for 6 months. Rita mentioned she'd just recently found herself with some free time. Helen didn't pry, which Rita appreciated. They talked about the weather, about the upcoming holiday, about nothing in particular. Then Helen said something that caught Rita off guard. You know, I almost didn't come here the first time. My daughter practically had to drag me out of the house. Rita looked up from the shelf she was organizing. Really? You seem so comfortable here. Helen laughed, a warm sound that filled the storage room. Oh, honey, comfortable now, yes. 6 months ago, I was a mess. My husband passed away last April. 52 years we were married. 52 years of waking up next to the same person, knowing he'd be there for morning coffee, for evening walks, for everything. And then suddenly he wasn't. She said it matter-of-factly, but Rita could hear the weight behind the words. I'm so sorry, thank you, dear. It's strange, isn't it? How life can just change in a moment. One day you have your routine, your plans, your person. The next day you're eating dinner alone and can't remember if you already had breakfast. Helen opened another box, checking the contents. I spent 3 months barely leaving my bedroom. My daughter would call every day, sometimes twice a day, just to make sure I was still among the living. Rita found herself nodding. I know that feeling. The not leaving the bedroom part. The days just bleeding together. Helen looked at her with those perceptive eyes. You've had your own hard time recently. It wasn't a question, and Rita didn't treat it like one. Lost my job 4 months ago. Been trying to find another one, but nothing's working out. I've got 2 kids to support and savings that keep getting smaller. Most days I feel like I'm failing at everything. The words came out before Rita could stop them. She hadn't meant to say all that. She barely knew this woman, but something about Helen made it feel safe to be honest. And yet here you are, Helen said softly, volunteering to help feed people on Thanksgiving. When you could be home feeling sorry for yourself. When you could be using this time for anything else. You chose to be here. Rita shrugged, suddenly uncomfortable with the kindness in Helen's voice. I just saw the post and thought maybe it would help to do something useful. That's exactly how I got here, Helen said. 6 months ago, my daughter showed me that same post. She said, Mom, you need to get out of that house. You need to be around people. You need to do something that matters. And I told her I was too old, too tired, too sad. But she wouldn't let it go. So finally I agreed to come just once, just to get her off my back. What changed your mind? Rita asked. Helen smiled. I realized that when I was helping someone else, I stopped thinking about myself for a little while. All that pain and loneliness and grief was still there, but it got quieter, like turning down the volume on a television. And the people here, they didn't know me as the sad widow. They just knew me as Helen, who's really good at organizing donations. They went back to sorting, but the conversation continued flowing naturally. Helen told stories about her late husband, about how they'd met at a dance in 1971, about how he'd proposed 3 months later because he said he knew a good thing when he saw it. She talked about their life together, the business they'd built, the ups and downs of marriage. Rita found herself sharing too. About her divorce 3 years ago, about how her ex-husband had left for someone younger, and how that had shattered her confidence. About raising 2 teenagers alone. About the panic that set in every time she checked her bank account. About feeling invisible and useless. You're not invisible, Helen said firmly. You're right here, and you're not useless. Look at all this work we've done. She gestured at the now organized shelves. This matters. These families who are going to get these meals, they won't know your name, but they'll benefit from your time and effort. That's the opposite of useless. By the time they finished for the day, 3 hours had passed. The storage room looked completely different, organized and ready. But more than that, Rita felt different. Lighter somehow, like she'd put down a heavy bag she'd been carrying. As they walked out together, Helen turned to her. Will you come back next week? We've got more donations coming in and I could use the help. Plus, I enjoy your company. Rita surprised herself by saying yes immediately. I'd like that. In the parking lot, they paused by Rita's car. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Helen pulled out her phone. Give me your number. We can coordinate schedules. They exchanged numbers, and then Helen said something unexpected. You know, Rita, I spent most of my life running a business. My husband and I built it from nothing. Marketing and advertising firm. We had a good run, sold it when we retired. Anyway, I mention this because I know what it's like to work hard and be good at what you do, and I can tell you're that kind of person too. Rita felt her throat tighten. She hadn't heard anyone say anything like that in months. Thank you, I mean it. Whatever knocked you down, it's temporary. You've got something special. I can see it in how you work, how you think, how you care. Don't forget that about yourself. Rita drove home that evening with tears running down her face, but they weren't the hopeless tears she'd been crying for months. These were different. She couldn't name what they were exactly, but they felt like the beginning of something. Like maybe she wasn't as lost as she thought. Like maybe reaching out to help someone else was actually helping her find her way back to herself. When she got home, Megan and Danny were doing homework at the kitchen table. They looked up with surprise to see their mom smiling. How was it? Megan asked carefully. It was good, Rita said. Really good. I met someone nice. We organized donations together. The kids exchanged glances and Rita could see relief on their faces. She realized they'd been holding their breath for months too, waiting to see if their mom would come back from wherever she'd gone. That night, Rita went to bed earlier than she had in weeks and actually fell asleep without lying awake for hours. And when she woke up the next morning, she got out of bed at a normal time. She made breakfast for the kids. She sent out job applications with renewed energy, but mostly, she thought about Helen and the storage room and the strange comfort of sorting canned goods with someone who understood what it felt like to lose yourself and slowly piece yourself back together. She thought about how a simple decision to volunteer had led to an unexpected friendship. And she wondered what next week would bring. Over the next 2 weeks, Rita showed up at the community center 3 times a week. Every time she worked alongside Helen in that storage room, and every time the conversations went deeper. They talked about everything and nothing. Helen shared stories about running her marketing firm, about difficult clients and successful campaigns, about the thrill of building something from the ground up. Rita found herself talking more freely too, about her work as a graphic designer, about projects she'd been proud of, about the creative part of her brain that had gone quiet lately. Helen listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she really understood the work. One afternoon, about 10 days before Thanksgiving, they were taking a break and drinking coffee from the center's ancient coffee maker. Rita was scrolling through her phone, half-heartedly checking her email for job responses that never came. Without thinking, she opened her photo gallery and started flipping through old design work. Helen, sitting next to her on the folding chairs, leaned over to look. "What's that?" "Oh, just some old projects. I was looking at them earlier thinking maybe I should update my portfolio." Rita tried to scroll past, suddenly embarrassed. "Wait, go back," Helen said. "Did you create those?" Rita nodded, pulling up a logo she'd designed for a local restaurant. Then a website layout for a nonprofit. Then a series of social media graphics for a fitness company. She watched Helen's face as the older woman studied each image carefully. "Rita," Helen said slowly, "these are exceptional. I mean really truly professional work. This isn't just good, this is excellent." Rita felt her face get warm. "Thanks, I mean it's what I did for 12 years. Before everything fell apart." Helen set down her coffee cup, her expression thoughtful. "Can I tell you something? And I want you to really hear me. I spent 35 years in marketing and advertising. I've worked with hundreds of designers, hired dozens of them over the years. I know good work when I see it. This," she pointed at Rita's phone, "this is the kind of work that wins clients and builds businesses." "It didn't save my job, though," Rita said quietly. "That wasn't about your talent. You said your company downsized. That means they cut people based on budgets and politics, not based on who was actually good at their work. Trust me, I've been on the other side of those decisions. Sometimes really talented people get let go for reasons that have nothing to do with their abilities." Rita wanted to believe her, but months of rejection had worn down her confidence. "I've sent my portfolio to probably 50 companies. I've only gotten 3 interviews and none of them went anywhere." Helen was quiet for a moment, studying Rita's face. Then she said, "Would you be comfortable sending me your full portfolio? I'd like to look at everything, see the range of your work." "Why?" Rita asked, genuinely confused. "Because I might know some people who are hiring. I'm retired, but I still have connections in the industry. Can't hurt to have another set of eyes, another person keeping an ear to the ground for opportunities." Rita felt that familiar flutter of hope mixed with fear of disappointment. "Sure, I mean, if you really want to. I don't want to impose, though." "You're not imposing. I'm offering." "There's a difference." Helen pulled out her phone. "Send it to my email. I'll take a look this weekend." That Saturday, Rita was folding laundry in her living room when her phone rang. Helen's name appeared on the screen. Her heart started beating faster. Maybe Helen had found a job lead, or maybe she was calling to let her down gently, to say the work wasn't as good as she'd thought. "Hello? Rita, it's Helen. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" "Of course." "Is everything okay?" "More than okay. I spent yesterday evening going through your portfolio. Every piece, every project. And I have to say, I'm even more impressed than I was at the center. Your range is remarkable. The restaurant branding is completely different from the non-profit work, which is completely different from the social media campaigns. That versatility is rare." Rita sat down on the couch, not sure where this was going. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." "I need to tell you something," Helen said, and her voice changed slightly, became more serious. "I mentioned I used to run a marketing firm with my husband. What I didn't mention is that my daughter runs it now. We handed it over to her about 5 years ago when we retired. She's done an incredible job, grown it beyond what we ever imagined. The company's called Beacon Marketing. Have you heard of it?" Rita nearly dropped the phone. Beacon Marketing was one of the biggest firms in the city. She'd actually applied there twice in the past 3 months. Both times she'd gotten automated rejection emails within days. "Yes, I've heard of it. I applied there, actually." "I know," Helen said. "After I looked at your portfolio, I called my daughter. Her name is Patricia. I told her I'd met someone remarkable while volunteering. Showed her your work. She pulled up your applications from the system." Rita felt her stomach sink. "Oh." She said both times you applied, your resume got filtered out by their automated system before any human even saw it. 4-month employment gap flagged you as potentially unreliable. It's ridiculous, but that's how these systems work sometimes. They're programmed to eliminate candidates based on arbitrary criteria. So that's why I never heard back." Rita had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed still stung. "Patricia felt terrible when I told her your story. Not just the job loss, but that you've been volunteering despite your own struggles. That says something about character that no algorithm can measure. So she wants to meet you." Rita's breath caught. "Meet me?" "They've been searching for a creative director for 6 months. Someone who can handle diverse projects, lead a team, bring fresh ideas. The position is still open because they haven't found the right person. Patricia looked at your portfolio for about 10 minutes and said she thinks you might be exactly what they need. I don't understand. Just like that? Because you showed her my work? Helen laughed. Not just like that. She's going to interview you properly, same as any candidate. But you'll actually get the interview. A real one with a human being who's seen your work and knows what you're capable of. That's all I could give you, a foot in the door. The rest is up to you. Rita stood up, pacing her small living room, trying to process what she was hearing. Helen, I don't know what to say. This is beyond generous. Say you'll go to the interview. Patricia wants to meet Wednesday afternoon if you're available. I'll text you the details. Yes, absolutely yes. After they hung up, Rita sat back down on the couch and stared at her phone. Then she started crying. Big, ugly, relieved tears that felt like releasing months of pressure. Megan came out of her bedroom, took one look at her mom, and rushed over. Mom, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything might actually be right. Rita told her about the call, about the interview, about how the woman she'd been volunteering with turned out to be connected to one of the best marketing firms in the city. Megan hugged her tightly. I told you something good would happen. I told you. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Rita updated her portfolio, rehearsed answers to potential interview questions, picked out an outfit that looked professional but not desperate. She met Helen at the community center on Tuesday, and the older woman gave her advice about what Patricia would be looking for, what kind of questions she might ask. Don't oversell yourself, Helen said. Patricia can spot insincerity a mile away. Just be honest about your work, your process, your ideas. Show her who you are, not who you think she wants you to be. I'm terrified, Rita admitted. Good, that means you care. Just channel that fear into focus. Wednesday afternoon arrived. Rita stood outside the sleek glass building that housed Beacon Marketing, taking deep breaths. The office was downtown, 12 floors up, with a view of the entire city. She checked in with the receptionist, who directed her to a waiting area with modern furniture and walls covered in award plaques. Patricia came out to greet her personally. She was in her early 50s with Helen's same sharp eyes but none of the softness. She was all business in a way that would have been intimidating if Rita hadn't been expecting it. Rita Collins. I'm Patricia Chen. Thank you for coming in. They shook hands and Patricia led her to a conference room. For the next hour, they talked about design philosophy, about managing creative teams, about handling difficult clients. Patricia showed her some of the company's current challenges, asked how Rita would approach them. Rita answered honestly, drawing on her 12 years of experience, letting her passion for the work come through. Then Patricia pulled up Rita's portfolio on the large screen in the conference room. Walk me through your favorite project here. Not the most impressive one. Not the one you think I want to hear about. Your actual favorite. Rita thought for a moment, then pointed to a series of designs she'd done for a small local animal shelter 3 years ago. This one. They had almost no budget, so I did it mostly pro bono. But they needed to attract donors and adopters, and their brand was all over the place. I created a consistent visual identity that was warm but professional, hopeful but realistic. Within 6 months of implementing the new branding, their adoptions increased by 40% and their donations doubled. Why was that your favorite? Patricia asked. Because it mattered. Because those dogs and cats got homes. Because a handful of people who cared deeply about animal welfare got tools to do their work better. The pay didn't matter. The portfolio piece didn't matter. The impact mattered. Patricia nodded slowly. My mother said you've been volunteering at the community center, organizing donations, helping prepare for Thanksgiving. You could have spent that time job hunting. I was job hunting, Rita said, but I needed to do something that felt useful. Something where I could see the results of my effort at the end of the day. Sorting cans isn't glamorous, but it's real. Those meals will feed real people who need real help. And you met my mother there. I did. She's been incredibly kind to me. More than I deserved, honestly. I was pretty lost when I started volunteering. Still am in a lot of ways, but Helen has helped me remember who I used to be before everything fell apart. Patricia leaned back in her chair. She called me 6 times this weekend. 6 times. Told me I was an idiot if I didn't at least meet you. My mother doesn't push like that unless she really believes in something. Rita didn't know what to say to that, so she stayed quiet. I'm going to be direct, Patricia continued. We need a creative director. It's a senior position with real responsibility. You'd be managing a team of 5 designers working directly with our biggest clients, setting creative direction for major campaigns. The job gap concerns me less than whether you're ready to jump back in at this level after 4 months away. I'm ready, Rita said, and she meant it. I'm more than ready. These past 4 months have been the hardest of my life. But they've also reminded me why I do this work. Not just for a paycheck, though obviously that matters, but because good design changes how people see things. It tells stories. It connects businesses with customers. It helps nonprofits fulfill their missions. I love that, and I'm good at it. Patricia smiled for the first time. My mother said you'd say something like that. The interview wrapped up 20 minutes later. Patricia said she had 2 more candidates to meet with but would make a decision by Friday. She walked Rita to the elevator, shook her hand again. Regardless of how this turns out, thank you for taking care of my mom at the community center. She's been through hell this year. Knowing she's found a friend there means more than you know. Rita rode the elevator down, feeling cautiously hopeful. She'd done well in the interview. She knew she had. But there were other candidates, other considerations. She couldn't let herself hope too much. That evening, she told the kids how it went. They were excited but careful, not wanting to jinx anything. Rita spent Thursday and Friday in a state of anxious waiting, checking her phone constantly, jumping every time it buzzed. Friday afternoon crawled by like a wounded animal. Rita tried to distract herself by cleaning the apartment, but she kept stopping mid-task to check her phone. Nothing. By 3 o'clock, she'd convinced herself that Patricia had chosen someone else and was just being polite by making her wait for an official rejection. At 4:15, her phone finally rang. Patricia's number flashed on the screen. Rita's hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. Hello? Rita, it's Patricia Chen. Do you have a minute? Yes, of course. I wanted to let you know we've finished our interviews and made a decision. I'd like to offer you the creative director position. Rita had to sit down. The words took a moment to fully register. You're offering me the job? I am. You were easily the strongest candidate. Your portfolio speaks for itself, but what really set you apart was your interview. You understand what design is for. Beyond just making things look good. You get the purpose behind it. That's what we need. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you so much. Patricia outlined the details. The salary was $15,000 more than Rita had been making at her old job. Full benefits starting day 1. 3 weeks paid vacation. A team of talented designers who were eager for leadership. A start date in 2 weeks, giving Rita time to get her life organized. After hanging up, Rita sat in stunned silence for probably 5 full minutes. Then she called Helen. The older woman answered on the first ring. Did she call you? Helen asked immediately. I got it. I got the job. Helen let out a whoop of joy so loud that Rita had to pull the phone away from her ear. I knew it. I absolutely knew it. Oh, honey, I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done this without you. You know that, right? You changed my entire life. No, Helen said firmly. You changed your own life. You're the one who decided to volunteer when you could have stayed home feeling sorry for yourself. You're the one who did excellent work for 12 years. You're the one who aced that interview. I just opened a door. You walked through it. When the kids got home from school, Rita was waiting in the living room with a rare treat. Ice cream she'd splurged on at the convenience store. Family meeting, she announced. They sat on the couch looking worried, like they'd been conditioned to expect bad news. Rita realized how much her struggles had affected them, how they'd been walking on eggshells for months. I got a job, she said simply. A really good job at a really good company. We're going to be okay. Megan burst into tears. Danny tried to play it cool but couldn't stop grinning. They ate ice cream and talked about what this meant. New clothes for school. Maybe a better apartment eventually. Normal things that hadn't felt possible in months. That weekend, Rita went to the community center on Saturday morning for what she thought would be a regular volunteer shift. Instead, she found the main hall decorated with balloons and a banner that said, "Congratulations, Rita." About 30 people were there, volunteers and staff she'd gotten to know over the past few weeks. Helen stood in the center, beaming. We wanted to celebrate your new job. You've been such a blessing to this place, and we're so happy things are working out for you. Beth brought out a cake. People clapped and cheered. Rita found herself crying again, overwhelmed by the kindness of near strangers who had become friends. These people had seen her at her lowest and still treated her with dignity and warmth. I want to say something, Rita said when things quieted down. A month ago, I was in a really dark place. I felt useless and invisible and like I'd failed at everything that mattered. Then I saw that post asking for volunteers and something made me respond. Coming here, meeting all of you, working with Helen, it saved me in ways you can't imagine. I thought I was coming here to help other people. But you all helped me more than I helped anyone else. Helen came over and hugged her. That's how it works. We help each other. That's the whole point. The next week passed in a flurry of preparation. Rita bought new work clothes, set up childcare arrangements for after school, went through onboarding paperwork. She was nervous but excited in a way she hadn't felt in years. The night before her first day, she barely slept. Monday morning, she walked into Beacon Marketing's offices wearing a new navy suit and carrying the leather portfolio case Megan and Danny had surprised her with the day before. Patricia met her in the lobby and gave her a tour, introducing her to what felt like 100 people whose names she'd never remember. The creative team, her team, was waiting in the design studio. 5 people ranging from a fresh-out-of-college junior designer to a seasoned art director in his 40s. They looked at her with a mix of curiosity and cautious optimism, clearly wondering what kind of boss she'd be. "Hi, everyone," Rita said, fighting down her nervousness. "I'm Rita Collins, and I'm excited to be here. I know you've been without a director for a while, and I'm sure you have your own rhythm and way of doing things. I'm not here to blow everything up and start over. I'm here to support you, remove obstacles, and help you do your best work. So let's start by you telling me what you're working on and what you need." For the next hour, they walked her through current projects, challenges, frustrations. Rita listened more than she talked, asking questions, taking notes, getting a feel for the team dynamics. By lunchtime, she could tell this was going to work. These were talented people who just needed direction and advocacy. The first week was intense. Rita was learning the company's processes, meeting clients, reviewing work, setting priorities. She left exhausted every day but energized in a way that felt like coming back to life. Her brain, which had been foggy for months, felt sharp again. On Wednesday of her second week, Patricia called her into her office. Rita's heart jumped, worried something was wrong already. "Relax," Patricia said, reading her expression. "You're doing great. I wanted to talk to you about something else. The Thanksgiving dinner at the community center is this weekend. I'd like to attend, and I'd like to bring some people from the company. Make it a volunteer day. My mother speaks very highly of the program." "That would be wonderful," Rita said. "They always need extra hands. I also wanted to discuss something else. I've been thinking about what you told me in the interview, about the work you did for that animal shelter, the pro bono project, how it mattered because of the impact." Rita nodded, not sure where this was going. "I want to start a program here at Beacon. Call it something like Impact Initiative or Design for Good. We'd commit to taking on 2 or 3 nonprofit clients a year at significantly reduced rates or pro bono. Give our designers a chance to work on projects that matter beyond making money. I'd like you to lead it." Rita felt emotion rising in her throat. "Patricia, that would be incredible. I'd be honored." "Good. Put together a proposal for how it would work. We'll present it to the full company at next month's meeting." That Saturday, Rita was at the community center by 6 in the morning, helping set up for the Thanksgiving dinner. Helen was already there, of course, directing traffic and making sure everything was perfect. Around 8, Patricia arrived with 15 people from Beacon Marketing, all ready to help. The day was organized chaos in the best way. 200 families came through for meals. Volunteers served food, played with kids, packed take-home boxes. Rita found herself working alongside her new colleagues, seeing them in a completely different context. Patricia worked the serving line like she'd done it her whole life. The quiet art director from her team turned out to be amazing with kids, leading an impromptu craft session. During a quiet moment in the afternoon, Rita stepped outside for some air. Helen joined her, both of them leaning against the building's brick wall. "Look at what you've built," Helen said, gesturing back toward the center. "All these connections. Your new job, your team volunteering together, my daughter engaging with the community again. It all started because you responded to a post asking for help. I keep thinking about that," Rita admitted. "How different my life would be right now if I hadn't clicked on that post. If I'd just scrolled past it like I almost did. But you didn't scroll past it. You chose to help. That matters." Rita was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something? The morning I saw that post, I was in such a dark place. I'd been lying in bed for hours, wearing the same bathrobe I'd had on for 2 days, drinking instant coffee because I couldn't afford the good stuff. I felt like my life was over. Like I had nothing left to offer anyone. Helen took her hand. And now? Now I have a job I'm excited about. A team that's starting to trust me. Kids who aren't worried about their mom anymore. And a friend who changed everything. Rita squeezed Helen's hand. You gave me my life back, no, sweetheart. You gave yourself your life back. I just helped you remember who you were. They stood there together, watching through the windows as people ate and laughed and connected. Inside, Patricia was taking a selfie with the Beacon team, everyone grinning and covered in cranberry sauce stains. A little girl was showing off the turkey she'd drawn in the craft session. Two elderly men were deep in conversation over pumpkin pie. You know what the miracle really is? Rita said. It's not the job, as incredible as that is. It's remembering that I matter, that I have something to contribute. That asking for help and offering help are both brave things to do. Helen smiled. Now you're getting it. As the sun set that Thanksgiving evening, Rita helped with cleanup alongside people who had become family in the span of a month. She thought about the journey from that Tuesday morning in her bathrobe to this moment. About how the decision to volunteer, made when she felt most broken, had led to finding Helen, which led to finding her way back to herself, which led to the job, which led to this community of people all choosing to help each other. On the drive home, with leftovers from the dinner on the passenger seat, Rita called her kids. Hey, I'm heading home. It was a good day. We're making hot chocolate, Megan said. Hurry home. Rita smiled. Home. A small apartment that finally felt warm again. Kids who were thriving. A job that challenged and fulfilled her. A friend who believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. Not bad for someone who'd been at rock bottom just a few months ago. The miracle wasn't that everything suddenly became perfect. The miracle was that she'd reached out when she had every reason to withdraw. And in reaching out, she'd found not just a job or a friend, but herself again. The woman who helped at bake sales. Who organized birthday parties. Who smiled easily and meant it. That woman had been there all along, just waiting for Rita to remember her. And now finally she had. As she pulled into her parking lot, Rita thought about Monday morning. About new projects waiting at Beacon. About the impact initiative proposal she was drafting. About all the ways she could use her second chance to make things better. Not just for herself, but for others too. She'd reached out to help and found a miracle waiting. But maybe the real miracle was discovering that helping others and helping yourself weren't separate things at all. They were two sides of the same beautiful truth. We need each other. And when we're brave enough to admit that, amazing things become possible. 6 months after that first Tuesday morning when Rita clicked on a volunteer post, she stood in the conference room at Beacon Marketing, presenting the impact initiative to the entire company. 50 people filled the room and spilled into the hallway. Patricia sat in the front row next to Helen, who'd been invited as a special guest. Rita clicked to her first slide. Design isn't just about making things look good or selling products. At its best, design changes lives. This program will let us use our skills to support organizations doing meaningful work in our community. She outlined the proposal. Beacon would partner with 3 nonprofits each year, providing full-scale branding and marketing services at no cost or heavily reduced rates. The projects would be chosen based on community impact, organizational need, and alignment with the company's values. Every designer would get the chance to work on at least one impact initiative project per year. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. People asked questions about how projects would be selected, how time would be allocated, what kind of nonprofits they'd work with. The energy in the room reminded Rita of why she'd fallen in love with design in the first place. After the presentation, Patricia stood up. I want to thank Rita for putting this together. As many of you know, she came to us through an unusual path. She was volunteering at the Valley Community Center when my mother met her. That act of service, reaching out to help others during her own difficult time, tells you everything you need to know about her character. This program reflects that same spirit. I'm proud to announce that the Impact Initiative is approved, and Rita will be leading it alongside her creative director responsibilities. The room erupted in applause. Rita caught Helen's eye, and the older woman was wiping away tears. Over the following weeks, Rita threw herself into making the Impact Initiative a reality. She reached out to local nonprofits, evaluated their needs, presented options to the selection committee. The first 3 partners were chosen: a literacy program for underprivileged kids, a mental health organization serving veterans, and yes, that same animal shelter Rita had worked with years ago. Her team at Beacon had gelled into something special. The junior designer had blossomed under Rita's mentorship. The art director brought ideas that pushed everyone's thinking. They'd landed 2 major new clients and received an industry award for a campaign they'd developed. Patricia told Rita she was exceeding every expectation. But success at work was just one part of the story. Rita's relationship with Helen had deepened into something that felt like family. They still volunteered together at the community center twice a month. Helen had dinner at Rita's apartment regularly, becoming the grandmother figure Megan and Danny had never had. They called her Gram Helen, and she called them her bonus grandchildren. One evening in late spring, Helen invited Rita and the kids to her house for dinner. Rita had been there before, but this felt different somehow. Helen seemed nervous, which was unusual for her. They ate on Helen's back patio, a beautiful space overlooking a garden that Helen's late husband had designed. After dinner, while the kids were inside looking at photo albums Helen had pulled out, the 2 women sat together watching the sunset. "I need to tell you something," Helen said. "I've been thinking about it for weeks, and I want you to hear it from me." Rita felt a flash of worry. "Is everything okay? Are you sick?" "No, nothing like that. I'm healthy as a horse, thankfully." Helen took a breath. "I'm selling the house. It's too big, too full of memories. I'm moving into a condo downtown, something smaller and more manageable, and I've decided to do something with the money from the sale." "Okay," Rita said slowly, not sure where this was going. "I'm creating a foundation. The fund will provide grants to people who are going through difficult transitions. People who've lost jobs, gone through divorces, or recovering from illness. Whatever the crisis, if they're trying to rebuild their lives, the foundation will help. Cover rent for a few months, pay for job training, provide childcare, whatever removes barriers and gives people space to get back on their feet." Rita felt her eyes filling with tears. "Helen, that's beautiful. I'm calling it the Second Chances Foundation, and I want you to be on the board. Help me make decisions about who to support and how to help them. You've been where these people are. You know what it feels like to need help and not know where to find it." "I'd be honored," Rita said. "Truly honored." Helen reached over and took Rita's hand. "After my husband died, I wanted to die too. Not actively, but I just didn't see the point in continuing. Then my daughter pushed me to volunteer, and I met you, watching you come back to life, seeing you rebuild from the ground up. It reminded me that life keeps offering us chances. We just have to be brave enough to take them." "You saved me," Rita said. "We saved each other. That's how it works." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned from orange to purple to deep blue. Inside, they could hear Megan and Danny laughing at something in one of the photo albums.